What's up YouTube, Webbers5 here, coming at you tonight with my update to my Pendulum Guardragon build. Giving you guys the update now because, as most people will know, Duel Power was just released a few days ago, which means I finally got the one thing that makes Pendulum Guardragon absolutely more viable. So, without further ado, let's get into this profile. Okay, so starting the profile off with, I'll start by showing you guys the Electromite Turbo cards. So starting that off is some of this, pretty much all of this is standard. So standard of 3 chronograph, 1 time gazer, very easy chronograph. Naturally, great way as a quick way to turbo out a time gazer as a special summon to get one of 2 monsters on the field for your Electromite. And actually chronograph secondary effect of if a card's destroyed, special summon it, and then you can also summon another monster from your hand. So one of the best ways for Electromite Turbo. Minimum explanation needed. Next, my Mythical Beast engine, playing 3 Cerberus as your searcher, 1 Jackal King as the way to tutor the Cerberus out from the extra deck so you can get the Electromite started, and also 1 Basilisk. I was playing 2 Jackal King. I've noticed some builds are going for 3 Cerberus, 1 Jackal King, 1 Basilisk. I'm kind of liking it. I'm kind of liking it as well because it means I don't really brick too much with the Jackal King if I open multiple of them. And frankly, you don't really use Jackal King too much as a negate anymore. So having Basilisk as that nice option as well is pretty useful because Basilisk has the effect to kill itself, destroy itself, to shuffle back a spellcaster into the deck and then draw a card. So a good way to help sort out your hand if you need to. Next Electromite Turbo engine. This one's also kind of crucial in terms of the Guardragons. So that's 3 Darkworm, and I'm playing 2 Gate 0. And I'll go into the I'll go into my Darkworm Turbo cards once I get into the spells. But Darkworm, I'm finding, is absolutely more crucial than ever if you're playing the Guardragon build. That's why I've pretty much maxed out on the engine. So I want 3 Darkworm because I always want to see Darkworm in this deck, and I've now got it to the point that I can pretty much have access to Darkworm nearly every single game, which is good. And then double gates, and I've upgraded gate 0 to 2 because naturally you want 1 for the standard to get as a search, which you can then use as a scale, and then the second one just for deck thinning a bit later. And then the last Electrum Turbo card, 3 Curtain Raiser. I've been kind of on and off about this card for a while. Like, originally I didn't like him because he conflicted with Darkworm. Now it's one of those, I just kind of want him as an additional extender in case I don't see the Darkworm. But even if I don't see a way to open the Darkworm, I always have a way to get into the Darkworm, even if it's usually just adding it as the extra deck off the Electromite, so yeah. Because like I said, guys, in the Pendulum Guardragon specific variant, you always want to see that Darkworm to get your Guardragon started. So yeah, playing 3 Curtain Raiser just to max it on my Electrum and Turbo engine. Okay, so that's it for the Electrum Turbo Pendulums. Next, going into the Magicians that I'm playing. So I'm playing 3 Harmonizing and 3 Wisdom Eye. Those are the only ones that I'm playing at 3. Those are the only ones that I'm playing at 3. They're the only ones I need to play. They're the only ones I need to play at 3. Wisdom Eye just to tutor itself as any scale, so naturally you want as maximum of that as possible. And harmonizing at 3 because that's like your main scale. That's pretty much now your main scale 8, and also your way to help get your extra deck plays out as a monster. So yeah, definitely want to max out on these ones. Don't really need to max out on anything else. Those are the main ones. I've actually cut my Magician engine down to 10 from what I was playing previously. So it's currently those 6. So those 6 is your main ones, and then the 4 other Magicians I'm playing. One Oath Dragon. You tend to only use him as a scale, either by floating him off Wisdom Eye or searching him. You don't really use him for anything else. One John K. Sometimes you use him for the absolute play. I'm finding in the Guardragon variant the absolute play comes up very rarely, but still nice to have that option. And Janke is a light negation, which lights are semi-prominent in the format right now, but who knows, maybe they'll appear again. And last one, next one purple poison, just as a level 4, and a way to out Floodgates. And then last magician I'm playing, 1 Dragon Pit Magician, again as a level 7 for the absolute play, and also using him for his Pendulum effect of sniping back row if I have to. So that's it for the magicians. And last monsters in my deck are for my Guardragon targets. So I've got one Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. This is usually one I will sometimes go into off LP if I'm going second. So I've got LP's effect, special summon Persona from the deck, and then I've got Persona who can negate the effects of a face-up extra deck monster, which is pretty useful, particularly if you're going second. And 4 if I'm going first, 1 Destrudo, so I can make a synchro until level 7, so I can do a synchro play, get something else out. And then my last dragon target. Sometimes I summon this off LP, sometimes I'll summon it by other methods, but I'm playing 1 copy of a Morphage Goliath. I put this into the main deck with the release of the new Horatic Link that lets you tribute itself off to special summon a dragon from the deck. So that's just a nice little option of another disruption to your opponent. And also I found with one of the extra monsters I've got, if I have it in my hand, I can still summon him to the field to look at my opponent's extra deck, and because I'm summoning it by a different method, he gets to keep all of his attack points, which is useful. So yeah. Okay, so that's all the monsters that I'm playing. Next, going into the spells. Like I said, I want to try and see the Dark Worm as much as I can, so kind of maxed out as much of the Dark Worm Turbo cards that I felt like as I could in terms of wanting to keep it a 40 card deck. So playing one Foolish, Standard, 3 Dragon Shrine, and then 1 Terraforming and 2 Dragon Ravine. I was thinking of playing 2 Terraforming and 2 to 3 Dragon Ravine, but I was trying to keep this as close to 40 cards as possible. I wanted to keep it at exactly 40 cards. I couldn't figure out 2 cards to cut in, and frankly, I didn't want too many cards that could become potential bricks a bit later. I'm already disliking that Dragon Shrine hitting multiple of that in your hand is a bit of a brick. But compliments of some of the stuff in my extra deck, I found a way to utilize those bricks, but I'll get to that when I get into the extra deck into a moment. But for the moment, I'm finding this ratio for Dark Worm Turbo cards is enough. So specifically Electrum. So about Electrum Turbo wise, like half my deck is for Electrum, and I counted through my deck. I've got so that's 7 cards there and the 3 Dark Worms. So I've got 10 ways of getting to Dark Worm straight. I've got like a quarter of my deck, which is a way to get Dark Worm, which is absolutely amazing for the Guardragon specific variant. And the last spell that I'm playing, just 3 pen call, just as a way to naturally a way to get my scale set up, and if I've got the Dark Worm in my hand, lets me get it in the grave to go +1 off of, so I can go +1 off of that. Sorry guys, I keep knocking my camera. And also the advantage I find with pen call is it makes for a very easy sidecar. Makes for a very, very easy sidecar choice. Okay, so that's it for the main deck. Going into the extra deck, starting with the links, playing 1 Electromite. Not really any explanation needed. It's a Pendulum deck. You play Electromite. Enough said. Well, just go into a bit more. So when I summon Electromite, generally I will try and float in something into my extra. Usually what I've been doing recently with Electromite is either adding a Magician into my extra, I usually try going for adding in harmonizing into my extra deck, so I can either add it back to my hand with Electromite, so I can use it as a scale depending on what's in my hand, or so I can summon it. Also, I can summon it as a monster and start getting additional negates on the field. Or every now and then, if I did, as I said, if I don't hit and if by any reason I don't hit a Dark Worm engine card, I will just use Electromite to add the Dark Worm into my extra deck, so at least I've got a way to start doing my Guardragons, which is what my deck wants to do. And then one Guardragon LP, the starter of the Guardragon combo, summoning a dragon straight from the deck. I do dislike that it locks me into summoning dragons, but sometimes that is the way. But now I've got lots of easy ways to get rid of him, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, LP's ability to just summon a dragon from the deck, and if I've sided for game 2, and say my opponent just locks me out of a lot of resources to summon, or I might just go LP's effect straight off and special summon Goliath from the deck, and then just stop my opponent from extra deck there. If I'm like say in the position that I don't have very many resources left. If I don't have enough resources to go into, because sometimes I have to play through a lot of hand traps, which locks me out of many resources. So sometimes I'll use LP to go into like Destrudo to set up for more negates, or naturally Persona if I'm trying to push through. But sometimes I just go for the Goliath if I'm worried about extra deck plays. Because things like Sky Striker are a thing, so dropping Goliath is pretty useful, so you can just hit over their Sky Striker. They can potentially use the Ray to recur, but then they can't tag Ray out into something new because Goliath says no to extra deck. And then one Argapane, tutors out your dragons from the extra deck. So many good dragon options you can play, but I'll get to some of my choices in a moment. It's also a link to which helps set up if I want to go into a Boral, because sets up for a Boral if I've got another monster or I'm trying to push for game. Because I've got the LP as one monster which I don't want to keep on the field, the Argapane which I probably also don't want to keep on the field, so that's 2. And since Argapane can be treated as 2, I just need one additional monster and boom, I've got a Boral. So that's pretty useful. Next link I'm playing, the reason the Guardragons are a bit more consistent now and aren't as bricky, one copy of Erratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres. So this is one of the new cards that came out in Duel Power this week. So it's got 2 arrows that point down, which is really useful if you're trying to extend. And requires 2 dragon monsters, which the Guardragons are, naturally. And it's got the effect of during the opponent's turn, if it's in your extra monster zone, as a quick effect, you can tribute a monster from your hand or field, return a face-up card on the field to the hand. So it doesn't target, and it gets rid of a resource without destroying it. As well. So or banishing, sending to grave. So really useful if you need to get rid of a thunder. Pretty useful if you need to get rid of like a Thunder Dragon for your opponents before your opponent goes into like one of the bigger plays. Though probably you might just want to use it on the Colossus after it's summoned, after they've used up the resources. And then its secondary effect is if it gets tributed, you get to special summon a dragon from your hand or deck, but make its attack and defense 0. So ideally what you do is use the first effect, tribute itself off, and bounce something, and then use the second effect to tutor out one of your dragons from the deck or hand. So a lot of the time I tend to go into Goliath to add an extra disruption on my opponent, so that they just can't use their extra deck. Or sometimes I'll go into Persona if, say, they're in a position that they're already going into they've already got a solid extra deck setup on the field. But yeah, I'm really loving this card since it came out. So, kind of sucks that it was short printed, but I don't mind. I love this card. So great. Next link I'm playing, one triple burst, primarily using it for the Guardragon combo. Does I don't really find its secondary use of its own effects comes up very frequently for me now, but they're always nice to have if necessary. And then my last two links, I'll just do it at the same time. Playing both Borals, so one Boral Load and one Boral Sword. Boral Sword naturally really good for pushing for OTKs, and Boral Load for those situations that Boral Sword isn't good for. For example, Thunder Dragons, because if you can't kill them in battle, rob it, because that's fun. And naturally, of course, they're extra deck dragons as well, so you can just summon one. So if you've got the resources, you can use the effect of Argopane to summon one of them, and then if you've got another monster on the field, use your two Guardragons and another monster to summon the second one. And then, yeah, that gives you lots of good options. Okay, so that's it for the links. Moving on into the XZs I'm playing. Playing one copy of Absolute. So I don't find this comes up too frequently, but naturally it's a good option to have for the Vortex combo. Because frankly, with your Guardragons, you could just summon Vortex straight away, but naturally that gives you the secondary option if you choose to, say, use your Argopane to summon a different kind of disruption on your opponent. So it works like that. And then one Tornado Dragon, just a bit of spot back removal, very easy to summon. Yeah, still liking Tornado Dragon as my rank 4 choice. Also pretty useful if, say, I'm in a desperate position and I've got, say, a purple poison accessible. I can just go effective Tornado, target the purple poison, pop, and then I get to pop another card, which is pretty good. That's it for the XZs. Going into the fusions, I'll start with the obvious one Vortex. Because Vortex negates so many different things, and that's amazing. You can summon it straight off the Absolute after Absolute hits Grave, or you can also, or if you don't really feel like using, or if you don't have the resources at the level 7s for the Absolute, you can always just summon it straight off Argopane. You don't normally summon it off Argopane, but you can. So I like it. Next, most people wouldn't think I'd be playing any more fusion in this, but I've actually got one more. I'm playing one copy of King Dragoon. So this is a really old monster that came out all the way back in Flames of Eternity in... Oh god, what year was that now? What year was that when that came out? Is that like, what, 2008 or so? If someone knows the year, can you comment and let me know? So yeah, so King Dragoon has the effect that while he's on the field, your opponent can't target dragon monsters for the effects of spells, traps, or monster effects. So I find that really useful going first if I'm say against a deck like Sky Strikers. So I drop that turn 1 against Sky Strikers, and I'm like, and it's just like they can't Afterburner, they can't Widow Anchor, so that's a couple less resources of what they can do. I found it also pretty useful in my tournament today. I used to, when I was up against Spiral, because naturally Spiral Tough's effect that lets you pop monsters by targeting them. It also makes your dragons immune to things like the Borals, because they can't be targeted as well, so pretty useful. And then I also like him for his secondary effect, which is once per turn to special summon a dragon from your hand to your side of the field. So that's pretty useful if I've say got the option of Persona in my hand, or if I draw into the Goliath as well. So I can just summon that straight off, and that's another great disruption on the field. And then he's also a level 7 as well, so if, say, he's in the position that he's not doing much, I can overlay him with another level 7 into Absolute, and then get rid of the Absolute to summon Vortex. So yeah, I'm really liking this card since it came out. I'm really liking this card since I put it back in. I naturally had to go for the ultimate rare because I'm a bit obsessed like that. Okay, that's it for the fusions. Going into the synchros. One Boralo Savage Dragon. This is generally something I tend to go. This is probably one of my best options for going first, because I use Harmonizing and then any level 4 Magician, synchro into this. Equip one of my links from the grave. Usually the triple burst, because if I do it going first, triple burst has the most highest link rating, so that means I get the maximum borrow counts that I can. And then that gives me a negate of any effects at all, which is really useful. And it also naturally pumps itself up to a 4-2 at that point, which is pretty useful if it survives long enough to hit your opponent. The downside, if your opponent baits the negate and then just like MSTs the equip, you lose your borrow counters and you lose your attack gain. So, not great at all. So, that's one of the things just to watch out for with Savage. Next synchro. This one's kind of a cheeky tech that I use against specific types of decks. I'm playing one Dragoonity Knight Trident. So for those who haven't seen, Trident has the ability. So, to explain what Trident does, who remembers back to one of the old formats in Zodiac with True King Dinos? When people would just go Lithosigim and rip 3 out your opponent's extra deck. For free. Well, that's essentially kind of what Trident does, but it's not completely for free. You have to... Trident's a more fair version of Lithosigim, because Trident's effect is you can send up to 3 cards you control to the graveyard to look at your opponent's extra deck and send an equal number of cards to their graveyard. So I like using Trident against decks like Sky Striker and Salamangreat. So against Salamangreat, naturally you just go effective Trident, send 3, send all 3 Sunlight Wolves. So what are Salamangreats going to do without their little wolf friend? Not a lot. Though I find one of probably the best matchups I find is against Sky Strikers using this. Do that to... I mean, you're probably not going to use it game 1 against Sky Strikers because you're not necessarily going to know you're playing it. But if you go first in any other game, you could just be like, drop Trident, try and affect send 3, rip all your Kagaris out of the extra deck. And then, no Kagari. Is there really much Sky Striker can do without that Kagari? Not really. And also I find it's pretty useful. I find it also quite useful for myself because I naturally just play on a local level. I'm quite familiar with a lot of players in the locals. I'm very familiar with people's decks, sleeves they use. So generally I can try and figure it out very quickly. So I'm like, particularly with my good friend Dark Magician 84, I know his sleeves quite well. So if I be like, okay, he's playing this deck, he's relying on this monster, I'm going to drop Trident, Trident's effect, get rid of that Mace monster. That kind of ruins a lot of plays. Admittedly, he kind of hates me for doing it. I don't think he's forgiven me for it, and I don't blame him. But hey, it was an easy way. It was a nice way to win the game. And so yeah, I don't always make Trident on my first turn. Again, he's kind of deck specific. If I know what my once I've figured out what my opponent's plan is. Or sometimes I will summon him going first if I've got the resources to do. If I have the resources for it, because I need to have 3 cards to send. I do. But the advantage of sending 3 of your cards is that you can send your Guardragons away to lock yourself out of your dragon restriction. Another advantage is if you've got Absolute on your field as well, you can send the Absolute and send something that's in a zone that would allow you to summon from the extra deck, and then you get rid of some cards, and then you summon your Vortex for free. And again, he's also a level 7 if you want to make into an Absolute and summon Vortex. Yeah. Really glad I actually wasn't really sure about playing Trident. It was when I was doing my research into Guardragons, I just started looking through extra deck dragons, and I'm like, oh my god, Trident is so good. I want to play this. And so I am. And next Dragon Synchro, probably the best Dragon Synchro negate that you would summon off your Arcapane. 1 Hot Red Dragon Archery Abyss, because Archery Abyss can target a face-up card your opponent controls and negate it until the end of the turn. And then he's also got a nice secondary effect, which I don't actually use because it doesn't come up too frequently, but it's nice that it's there. Then if it deals damage, you get to res a Tuna monster from your graveyard, which, not gonna lie, that's not terrible. That's not terrible, just doesn't come up very frequently. And a 32 body is nothing to complain about. I was so glad that I already had this card when Guardragons got announced. And really good for a lot of players now because the original print, which I've got here, that's going at like 50 for the moment, and with its reprint in Duel Power, now it's a lot easier for people to get. So, for those who are thinking of playing the Guardragon variant, I'd highly recommend picking up this card. And then finally, the last card in my extra deck, one copy of F.A. Dawn Dragster, just as one of the main, pretty much my main Destrudo target for generating a level 7, and because he negates spells and traps, which is always fun. It's also pretty useful, and 2100 attack for when he's summoned is pretty good as well. So yeah, I like Dragster. I just kind of wish Dawn Dragster had a higher print. Wink, wink, hint, hint, Konami. Foil this thing up. Okay, so that's it for the extra deck. Moving into my side deck of what I played for today and what I'm going with for the format. Starting with 3 Pankratops. Pankratops I still feel is like one of the best commons ever printed, just because it can out pretty much any floodgate, provided you can target said floodgate. So that's pretty useful. Works on your opponent's turn as well. Level 7, so I can Pendulum summon it. So pretty good. Very excited that this thing's getting an ultra print in the new Battles of Legends. So I'll be picking a playset of that up, so I don't have to play the common. Not that I have anything wrong with the common. This is still like the best as I said, probably the best common ever. But man likes foil cards, so yeah. Next up, 3 Denko Sekka. Denko doesn't come up too frequently anymore, from what I've noticed at my locals, but still a good option against back row specific decks. So it's one of those, I'd rather just have the option than not have that option. And Denko's never really a bad card to side deck. Next one, this one's pretty new for me, but not new for the format. People have been playing this for ages when they had it. I was very fortunate that it got reprinted in Duel Power. Playing 3 Sphere Mode, just for a deck. Naturally, decks that overcommit to the board. For decks that overcommit to the board, just get rid of it. Just get rid of everything, and then just do your thing. Do your thing. And then 3 Twin Twisters for back row specific decks. Finding it pretty useful against things like going second against Sky Strikers, and then also pretty good against like Salamangreat as well. Though one of the issues of me doing it against Salamangreat is if the Balinx is in the graveyard and I go against the field spell, it can still banish itself. For that reason, I was thinking of trying Cosmic Cyclone, but I think I'd rather have the ability to hit multiple back row than just one. Plus, the discard's not bad if I had the Dark Worm in my hand as well. Plus, Twin Twisters is just overall really good side deck card. And then last card in my side deck, triple Red Reboot, just for rare trap matchups. Don't get it too frequently, but frankly quite useful against Salamangreat because of Raw. I don't like Raw. It irritates me. Same with Rage. I don't like any of the Salamangreat traps. So yeah, Red Reboot, pretty much one of the best anti-trap cards ever made, by far. Okay, so that's the deck profile, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Apologies that I might have rambled a little bit during it, but naturally in a deck like this, which has lots of different options, I figured I'd give you guys the proper explanation of why I'm playing them and why it's an idea to maybe think about playing them. There's also going to be a link in the description below leading to a combo video, sort of combo video, test hands video showing the different things that you can do with the Pendulum Guardragon deck. If anyone's got any suggestions of things that maybe I could try, maybe some other dragons that you could think of, there are so many good extra deck dragons in this game that you could be considering for Guardragons. Crystal Wing is another good target, but there's a lot of debate between playing Crystal Wing or Archfiend Abyss. I personalize a little bit more towards Archfiend Abyss, just because it hits a little bit more coverage, but Crystal Wing naturally can negate stuff in hand. But not really sure if there's anything else I feel like playing. But again, if anyone's got any ideas of dragons that I could be trying, just leave a comment in the description below. And again, I'll be leaving a description. I'll leave a link below leading to the combo test stand video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.